Jacob, we'll start with you. Banks are fine, says the Fed. Banks are fine, says the Treasury. The bank says, we're fine. Wall Street says, sell everything now because everything's on fire. They lied to us about safe and effective methods of medicine. Now, obviously, it was unbelievably bad. Now they say it's safe and effective to keep your money in the bank, and banks are falling apart. The collapse is in. We've seen them already. Third largest one happened this week with First Republic, $532 billion in assets among the three banks that failed. Jacob, is this it's a contagion in? Are we in for more pain as more and more banks get swallowed up by the big fish?
We're absolutely in for more, but this is not purely an American phenomenon by any means. Credit Suisse obviously went down the tubes, but I've been warning for some time. Be careful if Deutsche Bank hits the wall. Deutsche Bank is in serious trouble, more serious than the EU or the German government is admitting, more serious than Deutsche Bank is admitting. If Deutsche Bank hits the wall, duck for cover. Now, here in the United States, what you basically have is the ridiculous situation of, with Biden's deficit spending and the Federal Reserve printing money, quantitative easing, just basically printing money because the tax revenues are not sufficient to fund the waste of the Biden administration. They have a problem. That's inflation. It was inevitable. They caused it. So how do you control inflation? You raise interest rates. What does that do? When you raise interest rates, it causes recession, but it does something else. It makes debentures, bond prices collapse. So by raising the interest rates, the same Fed is causing bond prices to collapse. So what happens when this takes place? T-bills and other government-issued debentures particularly, that banks put their money into because it seems secure, are now losing value. What you saw happen with Silicon Valley Bank or First Republic Bank, that is a result of the same policies of the same Fed who are now forcing banks to merge into bigger ones.
Yes.
They caused the problem, and they are in no position to solve it. Interest rates have just gone up day before yesterday by another 0.25%. This makes bond prices go down, and these banks are holding bonds. They're holding treasury bills. Now, that also has international ramifications for foreign nations holding the treasury bills. What's going to happen? There's going to be more trouble. You have a situation where you have basically people not just incompetent, but they seem to be stupid. Janet Yellen is a stupid woman. She's a stupid woman, just a stupid old lady. You've got Powers, who's a joke. The very people responsible are now trying to manage something of their own creation. All they can do is raise the interest rates to help keep a lid on the inflation. And they have to do that. They have to strengthen the dollar because of the threat to the dollar from foreign currencies as the world currency reserve. They have to do it. They've dug themselves into this. And it's amazing to me how the public can't see it. There are people who will vote Democrat again. There are people who will vote for, they're that stupid. Here's a shovel, dig your own grave, and they will do it.
JP Morgan Chase, it's now the owner of First Republic. They basically took it on. And with the help of FDIC, $50 billion credit line, and they're taking on $173 billion in loans and $30 billion in security as well. David, it just seems like we're less banks, less regional banks. We've heard today, PacWest, Western Alliance, Metropolitan Bank, all in trouble, halted trading. Are these next?
Well, we could well see more runs because nobody really knows which one's next. They're guessing at who's going to fail next. And some of it is coming because individuals are scared, so they're running to the banks. They take their money out of the bank. and the banks can't fund those deposits elsewhere. And so it can be a self-perpetuating problem, because of fear. And Jacob's right. The Fed has created this problem, and they're always walking this tightrope to keep us from going into a recession. And they hope it will, but they're trying to calm people by saying, look, your money's insured to $250,000. If you have a wife and you have joint accounts, it's $500,000. But they're actually doing more than that. They're actually insuring all the deposits.
Yeah,
so
like
they're printing money. Well, they don't print money anymore. They're just making more zeros and ones available to the banks. Right now, Chase Bank has $3.7 trillion in assets after buying Republic. Plus, they have a $50 billion line of credit. Pretty nice. I wish somebody lend me $50 billion.
Question, real quick, Marco.
Yeah.
I just have one quick question. I'm not the greatest with finance, but has anybody addressed the elephant in the room of toxic loans to people who can't afford? Or are we actually going the other direction where, if you have a lower credit score, you get a better loan? I mean, are we going to address what's really the problem, or are we just going to, throw money at it and pretend that that's going to make a solution?
Keep throwing money at the problem until it goes away. It was that Biden administration's new policy to basically penalize people with high credit score.
That's
and
right.
Give a more favorable loans to people with lower credit score, which it goes against any logic, any reason. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, they're trying to put, like, if you have a very good credit rating, 800, something like that, you would be paying $40 or $50 more a month, which then they could put it on these bad loans. But look, there's so many bad loans out there. It's the value of houses has not gone up. People owe so much money, and we went right back to the 2008 problem. People were getting in over their heads, and banks were lending to people that are not necessarily credit worthy, and also they were allowing just 100% loans, 95% loans, things like this. So you have these high notes, and we're getting some layoffs now. The Fed's already said that there's going to be more and more layoffs, and so this could make another 2008. As you know, we've already had more banks collapse money-wise just out of 3 banks than we did in all of 2008. So a lot of money floating around.
Yeah.
Sorry, just one more question, actually.
Okay.
One more question. So the private sector is going to lay off people, the parts that generate income. Has there been any layoffs for government?
No, they're hiring.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear.
That's okay. They're increasing their payroll. They can't get enough people, according to the Interior Secretary.
Gotcha.
Oh, did you hear that? Yeah, did you hear that one? That was a doozy. We can't hire enough people. There's 2 jobs for every American.
Yeah.
And only maybe in the government there is, Morgan Stanley's preparing to cut 3,000 jobs.
Yep.
Among many other jobs, senior management, et cetera, et cetera. There's blood in the water, Jacob. Sharks are circling. Are we going to end up with 3 banks, 4 banks, 5 banks?
We're going to end up with about a half dozen major banks in the United States. About a half dozen. That's all. If there are the banks, they will be owned by the bigger ones. There'll be subsidiaries of the bigger ones, which is something that goes on in Britain. But that's what you're going to be left with. You're going to have forced mergers. The other thing is what they did with the subprime lending with Fannie and Freddie, for which Barney Frank, Chris Dodd, and Barack Obama, and Bill Clinton, and the former mayor of the former governor of New York, what was his name? The brothers, Cuomo. They
Oh, the
they
Cuomo guys, yeah.
they were largely responsible for those things, and now they're tinkering or tampering with Fannie and Freddie again, as you say, by penalizing people with a high credit rating to reward people with a low credit rating. You work hard to maintain a good credit rating, a good credit score, and you save enough to make a decent sized down payment on a house. You have to be penalized for doing that in order to reward people who've not done that.
Yeah.
That is what it basically comes to. The rich will always get richer under the Democrats. They try to make believe that's a Republican phenomenon. No, the banksters are Democrats. It's the middle class who gets it in the back.
Yeah. There's another big elephant in the room: commercial real estate.
Yes, that's going to go.
Commercial real estate, since COVID and the work at home thing, lots and lots of buildings are empty in New York, San Francisco. Buildings, a whole building was $100 million building in San Francisco was in a fire sale, and then they didn't get any bidders. So you have all these commercial real estates everywhere.
I would not be surprised if you're going to have this empty commercial space and skyscrapers in Midtown Manhattan are going to be turned into condos.
For homeless people on the public dole.
Yeah.
Wasn't De Blasio buying some of that stuff, Jacob, when the whole shutdown in New York? He was basically taking over some of the hotels and properties like that, and just buying them.
Making the tax and handing the taxpayer the bill.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So that's part and parcel. The other thing that was really interesting, JP Morgan has a what they called a digital coin already, JPM coin, which is fascinating to me that they're going to be issuing it to their depositors, and it's going to be worth something. I don't know if it's going to be a 1-to-1 with the dollar, but you could see that their solution is always go to the blockchain, go to the digital currency.
Yes.
Jacob, we're going to end up with 5 or 6 banks. Most people are going to be in those banks. It's nationalized, and you have at least in America, you may not have any other solution but to be in those banks and be given some kind of currency on a digital blockchain.
And you're going to have something that took place in the United States up until the 1860s, something that Abraham Lincoln tried to move against when he established the Secret Service. Banks issued their own notes. Issued their own notes. We're going to revert to that, only instead of it being notes, it is going to be digital.
Are they going to be able to trade it with one another, Jacob, based on the history, be able to trade it, it'll be worth something?
What happened with Bitcoin? The only thing is the establishment couldn't control Bitcoin, so they don't like it. But something they can control is entirely different.
Yeah. So we have major bankruptcies this year, 70 already major bankruptcies, which is overshadowed already 2020.
And many of them in the financial sector. Many of them in the financial sector.
Now, the White House response to this was to, at least for the Interior Secretary, Debbie Haaland, to find more jobs. Now, she says with the senator, she was before the Senate, that there's plenty of jobs, almost two jobs for every American. They can't find enough people to work. Obviously, she's probably referring to government jobs or menial jobs that won't be able to pay anything because the inflation is so high. She says it's better to get rid of jobs than to save the planet. She wants to save the planet rather than keep jobs in America. Even if the rest of the world doesn't do it, she's going to have this green agenda. It is from the White House to destroy, in my opinion, the economy for the green agenda. Jacob, this administration, it is hell-bent, seemingly purposely, destroying the economy.
Yes. Well, she's again, like Janet Yellen, she is a personally very stupid woman. She's a very stupid woman. She could not answer basic questions from Senator Hawley, things that she should have known to be in her position. She just doesn't know what she's appointed because she's a liberal woman and a political bureaucrat, and that's why she has a job. Not because she's qualified for it. She is eminently not qualified for it. She's also just stupid. She doesn't know how to think intelligently.
No, she didn't know
Maybe she doesn't
where.
lie, but she doesn't know how to
Yeah.
rationally debate anything. And that's typical. That's typical of the kind of people that the Biden administration hires. But I agree with you. There may be people on a higher level who just manipulate these people like pieces on a chessboard.
Yes.
Do the thinking, and they have an agenda that is globalist. Somehow saving the environment. I assure you, the environmental standards of the United States for the mining of everything from nickel to cobalt to precious earth metals, the environmental standards in the United States are much higher than the ones in China. China is environmentally reckless. I've been there enough times to see what they do. The pollution is unbelievable. Yet they say they're saving the planet by exporting these jobs and these industries to China. They are not saving the planet, they're catalyzing its destruction. But again, you're dealing with stupid people.
Yeah, she didn't even know that China is the largest exporter of cobalt, lithium, and graphite, which is what you need for cars, electrical cars. And there's a mandate now by the Biden administration for the military to go to electric vehicles, for the public to go to electric vehicles, right into the hands of China. Seems so bizarre.
Well, how can you believe that Biden is not on China's payroll? With the money that he's given to Biden's son, when Biden lied about not benefiting from his son's business activities, which he does, obviously, he was caught lying. When he let that reconnaissance balloon fly over sensitive strategic bases and did nothing about it until it finished its mission in sending the data back to China, the reconnaissance data back to China, how can you believe, or at least not question, is Biden a Chinese asset? Is Biden, compromised by China? Look at what he does. Now, that to a degree was true of Obama as well, with the solar panels, but nothing like what you have with Biden.
That's right. So, David, what's the answer to this? The nation seems to have an answer. The nations see the westernized craziness of Europe, England, the U.S., Australia, and they say, well, we're just going to jump over to the BRICS. We're jumping over to China, Russia, South Africa, Brazil, and we're going to make our bed there. Is that the answer to this economic destruction that we see in the world? Because Jacob's right. It is a world thing. It is a worldwide thing.
It's a temporary thing. I mean, they're not going to be able to do what they need. China's not geared up to make the type of, to be able to totally get the world the supplies they need. And leaving America out of the equation it's going to hurt America, but it'll also hurt the GDP of all these countries. They'll all go down. We'll all go down with this type of thinking, from the Interior Department to all the State Department, all of these people. The use of climate change as the investing way to go is really just a transfer of wealth from roughly $86 trillion to the Z and millennial generations. They don't know how to handle it. Don't worry. The government's ready to handle it for you. We'll just take it.